Buenos días, buenas tardes, y buenas noches, bonjour, bonsoir. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you may be. J. Slater case, 17th of May. Let's get rolling. And I want to touch on today very interesting news article that a follower sent me, and I want to go into the article in detail in another video because it is a Lancashire Class A, well, Class A, B, and C narco gang that has been sentenced just the other day. An operation called the Max Line, some of whose members are Oswald Twistle, Accrington area. But what caught my attention just for the purposes of this video was that there was a mother and son involved. Very, very rare to see a female of any age, let alone 53-year-old mother involved in such an operation. But there we go. So I just wanted to mention that, well, I want to do a thought experiment. Tell you what, first of all, let's just go to the part of the article that is of importance here, describing the mother and son involvement, and then I will ask you a question regarding Jay's Law and what we should be allowed to speculate on, and what things should be off limits. I will link the article, of course, to in the description to the video, so you can read it as always at your leisure. And it says Amanda Meadowcroft, 53. By the way, she is from Darwen, Darwen, in Lancashire, not that far away from good old Oswald Twistle. Amanda Meadowcroft, 53, was stopped by Border Force officers at Manchester Airport in April 2025 after flying back from the Dominican Republic. Officers soon uncovered the shocking truth. The mum had been involved in a plan to smuggle 14 kilos of cocaine into the country, along with her son, Bradley. No, not Hargreaves. Bradley Cousins, Couzens, Bradley Cousins. So there we have a mother and son outfit, up to no good, caught and convicted. But here's the point I want to make. I'm not obviously not saying that Debbie Duncan was involved in anything like the operation that this 53-year-old mother was involved with. Not saying that. But what I want to speculate here is, let's say the son. Just imagine this scenario. Let's say the mother's guilty of doing all this drug trafficking, but let's imagine, sadly, that her son, young Mr. Cousins, Bradley Cousins, died in some kind of, suspicious or accidental circumstances. Poor lad is dead. Now, we would imagine that the mother, criminal though she is, would be grieving away. Of course. Let's just imagine she lost her son in very unexpected, tragic circumstances. The mother is grieving. My question here is, under Jay's Law, even though the grieving mother is a criminal herself, would it be illegal to say anything negative about this grieving, convicted, narco dealing mother? Or would it be, under Jay's Law, the proposal is that all grieving mothers, all grieving families must be protected from negative comments from these so-called trolls? You see, this is the grey area that the likes of myself, many of you, do not get. It seems like the proposals in the Jay's Law petition were that grieving families must be off limits from trolls. Whatever a troll is, no one really gives me a satisfactory definition of that. What if the grieving mother is also a really nasty crook, a stain on society, someone that needs to be locked away? Similarly, do we then have to say yes, but the trump card here is that that crook of a mother is grieving. Therefore, nothing can be said negative against her. Otherwise, it's harassment, it's trolling, etc., etc. You can tell me. But interesting. If there is anyone out there saying, well, mother and son would never work together in such a narco operation, well, it's happened in Lancashire, and I'm sure it'll happen again at some point in Lancashire. Just seems to be the place where this kind of thing happens, from what I see. All right, as I say, more to say on that operation because apart from anything else, this gang used what I would call an open phone. And we'll get into that because all of the ramifications of the response Dr. David got from the Lancashire Constabulary hasn't been explored yet. I just wanted to move away from it for a while. And I wanted to go through, kind of catalogue the number of times where Debbie Duncan, I think, has given rise to suspicion. Suspicion about how she actually sees her own son's life, his activities, what's going on in his world. Because time and time again, it seems with every chapter in the Debbie Duncan Jay Slater life, there are alarm bells going off, but the last person to pick up on anything terribly wrong is Debbie. And this is where I challenge her when she keeps saying, you and I didn't know Jay. How could we possibly comment on anything? Every time I do read something about Jay's life, it seems like Debbie's the one that doesn't know anything that's going on in Jay's life. She seems to be the last one to know. But let's just catalogue it. For example, Mark Williams Thomas, when he did his investigation, he said the investigation has opened up an established criminal network. And this was after Mark Williams Thomas was talking to people that knew Jay or had come across Jay or those people on the strip who had something to offer. He investigated, he said, he talked to all kinds of people down in that area. And he said the investigation has opened up an established criminal network with links to drugs, violent crime, and theft. Now, that doesn't mean that Jay and his friends are involved in all those things, but it certainly implies what they were doing has connections to that world. I mean, they might have been directly involved in drugs, violent crime, and theft. I don't know. But Mark Williams Thomas said it's this criminal network that is in the background. They are connected to it. And yet we're told by the AG, good old Atchison Group, oh, there's no evidence of drugs, no evidence of any of this. Well, Mark Williams Thomas found it. And yet, from Debbie, I don't believe we have ever heard Debbie, Warren, Zach, Uncle Glenn, none of them, none of the family have ever uttered a word of surprise, of outrage, of amazement, of concern. Nothing, it seems, from Mark Williams's statement there has piqued their curiosity at all. You would have thought someone in that family would have said, I just can't believe Jay could have possibly been involved in any of that. But to me, their silence tells me either they knew what Jay was involved with, or when it comes to Jay, they just look the other way and pretend it never happened. And it's this pattern of either knowing about it and staying silent, or just turning the other way and pretending that's just irrelevant, that really bothers me here, because this is not a normal mother's reaction. Let's go back to the beginning, or the beginning of the Jay Slater story as far as his connection to criminality is concerned. Liverpool Echo. Again, I should, if I remember, I'll put a link so you can read this at your leisure. Liverpool Echo. This one was interesting. This isn't my main point, but I've just spotted in my notes here. The Liverpool Echo, regarding Lucy, Jay's uncle, that would be Uncle Glenn, said that the family has since, and I believe this is since the finding of Jay's body, has since had scant contact with Lucy. Because in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, how much, to what extent does Debbie, Warren, Zach, Uncle Glenn, any of the family, how often do they talk to the likes of Lucy, Brandon, Brad, Ayub, Rocky? You would have thought it would be fairly often. But it seems like, this is what bothers me, it never happens. Again, I would have thought Normal family would be wanting to keep digging, as we do, into all of the details that could be relevant to Jay's death. But it seems the opposite way around. They never do. Now, this is interesting, the wording. The family has since had scant contact with Lucy. Who's to blame there? Is it the family choosing not to contact Lucy? Again, weird. Why would you choose not to talk ad nauseum to Lucy about everything that happened leading up to Jay's death? Or is it Lucy simply refusing to talk to the family? Is Debbie on the phone 24/7 saying, Lucy, just walk me through one more time. What exactly did you say when you spoke to the police? Lucy, what is all this police report saying you spent the night at the Airbnb with Jay? Is all of this contact the family has chosen not to make? In which case, why? Normal parents can't understand this accident group. I understand accident group that in your world it's quite normal for your kid to die and you have no interest in contacting the last people that were around your kid in the last 24 hours. In your case, accident group, I get it. Because you are, it seems, heartless, callous, uncaring individuals. That bit I get. But for normal parents, I don't get this having scant contact with Lucy. But anyway, getting back to my point, Jay Slater, early on, 12 years old, you might remember in the newspapers, it was reported that Jay got beaten up by some older guys, adults. I think they were, um, yeah, they were definitely adults. I think they were Indians in the local area, Asians. But anyway, the important words in the Liverpool Echo were Jay was ambushed and beaten up. So originally I was thinking, well, this could be a random attack, you know, kind of adult gang decide to pick on two 12-year-olds in the street. It's so rare, it's possible. But I checked again, the word was ambushed. Ambush means to me, those gangsters, those adult gangsters, were waiting for the little 12-year-old and his friend to come out, to come down the street. And they were jumped, beaten up. And it was more severe than I thought first time round. Liverpool Echo says Jay is a 12-year-old. He was really shook up. This is Debbie's words. He was really shook up and had a massive lump on his head. She said they were kicking him when he was on the ground. I mean, you can lose your life once the boots are flying and you're on the ground. You're pretty helpless. Debbie went on. This is the bit I want to focus on. People are saying there are gangs of youths in Oswald Twistle, but I know Jay wasn't involved with that. People are saying it's like, again, Debbie's living in her own deluded world, some other universe where she's completely unaware of the truth. She can only pick up on what people are saying. She herself, even though she was working in a school, I guess, she just doesn't know it. She doesn't see it. What is she saying? People are saying there are gangs of youths in Oswald Twistle. It's almost like saying, that's what I've heard, but I don't believe it. And then she says, I know Jay wasn't involved with that. How? How could she possibly know for a fact Jay wasn't involved with that? The evidence would suggest that he was. Yeah. These adults that decide to ambush Jay, the evidence suggests that Jay's involved with something. But Debbie has blocked this off. Why is that? I know Jay wasn't involved with that. You don't, Debbie. You can't know everything. No one knows everything. And I think this is the weakness here. We get told we don't know Jay, we didn't know Jay. But I'm turning this around and saying it sounds from what you have said to the press over the years, Debbie, you didn't know Jay, or you keep looking the other way and you don't want us to know Jay. And then there's this bizarre, he had only been out of the house for about half an hour. What has that got to do with it? Whether Jay was out of the house for 5 minutes or 5 hours, the point was he got ambushed by some adults over something darn serious. What did the 12-year-old do or not do that warranted that? And as usual, we don't find out. That all then goes silent. No one has any idea why this attack happened, it would seem. And getting back to the Tom Hilton attack, I'm sure you remember this. Judge Parry said that every one of you, and he's describing all 8 members of that gang, including Jay, every one of you deserves to be sent to youth detention. Where do we ever get a comment from Uncle Glenn, Debbie, Warren, Zach on that judge's evaluation? All we get is, oh, Jay was just a bystander. Jay was innocent. Jay did nothing. Well, I wasn't aware of any appeal on behalf of Jay that said, you've got this all wrong. We need to appeal it because he didn't do anything. Every one of you deserves to be sent to youth detention, said Judge Parry. Well, at the time, Debbie was silent, it seems. Only afterwards did she say the judge got that terribly wrong. The jury got it terribly wrong. All the witnesses said, yeah, they got it all wrong. Everyone got it wrong. And even though Debbie wasn't there at the time of that attack, she knows exactly what happened. You see, this is not taking responsibility. And it bothers me because there's a continuous pattern of this all the way through. And that is why I question the word of Debbie Duncan, because she has never been, when it comes to Jay, sincere, open, honest, transparent about what the hell that boy's up to. So why must we respect her word? I understand Debbie Duncan has been grieving, is grieving. But it also seems she's living in a totally doolally world where she has no clue what's going on. Someone has to call it out. You can't just sail on through life saying, oh, it's fine, you think what you think. No, this is serious stuff. So I'll call her out. Debbie, you haven't come forward with anything that resembles truth and honesty in the life of Jay Slater. You just haven't. Sadly, the mockumentary crew and the mainstream media are on your side, but someone has to call out the facts. Also, bear in mind, Judge Parry said that not only was this gang involved in the attack on Tom Hilton, he also, though he didn't specify who in the gang was responsible for this, he mentioned intimidation, witness intimidation. He mentioned dealing in drugs. He mentioned that narco dealing. Yeah. I mean, that could have been Jay, that might not have been Jay, I don't know. But it's always in the background. This 12-year-old has to hide under a car because he's been ambushed. The guy with the Moncler jacket, just standing on the edge of a group that's attacking someone else. But that's not what Judge Parry said happened. And then we have this 18-month community order. Although, to be fair, in the Liverpool Echo, it said it was an 8-month community order. Everywhere else I've seen, it says 18-month community order. And definitely in the press, it says that community order was not completed. Jay had not completed the community order. It's what I've read. And again, this isn't addressed. No one mentions this. What kind of mother says, oh, you haven't finished your community order, but I do think it's a really good idea you go on holiday to Tenerife with your very suspicious friends. Why is that never addressed? Why has never anyone asked Debbie about that? Is it because a grieving mother must never be asked any of these questions, ever? If Debbie's grieving forever, she must never be challenged with a question like, why did you think it was such a good idea for Jay to go to Tenerife with these dodgy friends, even though his community order had not been served? Well, if the proposals of Jay's law are that we must never ask those questions because they're somehow disrespectful to a grieving mother, then I guess if Jay's law becomes law, I'm going to have to break the law. Because I think transparency and truth in these matters is more important than some dodgy law that says, oh, these people are protected. Can't ask them anything. And then we have the refusal to contact any of the friends. We just mentioned Liverpool Echo says that the family has had scant contact with Lucy. That doesn't make any sense. If it was all an accident, Lucy should now be fully embraced. Debbie should have given apologies for Lucy and Brandon not being invited into the wake and the whole shindig and the party. And, I'm sure you remember the scenes. There's Saul Wilkin having a right knees up with Debbie and the booze is flowing. And there's that picture of Brandon and Lucy looking rather sheepish outside. Like, yeah, this doesn't feel good. Well, I wonder if the family has since apologized to Lucy and Brandon and said, we got it wrong. Yeah, we got it wrong. The facts now say it was all an accident. So you guys, we really apologize for having treated you given you the cold shoulder. Do you think that apology has happened? Or do you think these two factions now are still, we just don't talk about things like that? It's, accident, 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 but we don't talk about any details because otherwise the whole accident thing might fall apart? Don't know. But it is clear to me that Debbie did all in her power not to contact these friends. We have to remember that Coroner Adderley gave a summons, court summons, to Debbie to hand over to Brandon when she went to Tenerife in between the two inquests. Here you go. Here you go. We can't get in touch with this guy any other way. You're going over there. Here's the summons. Put it in his hand. Job done. Debbie chose not to do that. Much more important to have some kind of celebration dinner with Luggy and Chris. Yeah, where they're all looking like Cheshire cats. And I guess Debbie somehow, she's probably got the summons in her hand somewhere or in her bag somewhere, never ever to be given to Brandon. Why is the mother of the victim so reluctant to have contact with the people that I think know what happened? And they're certainly the people that were with Jay in those last 24 hours. It should be the other way round. It should be, you would think, it should be that these friends of Jay would be begging Debbie to stop calling them and stop asking questions, taking her to court for harassment, because she's always onto them about, tell me how this happened, tell me what was going on. It's the other way around. How many times did Debbie and Zach and Warren and Uncle Glenn, how many times did they call Ayub to find out what happened in the Airbnb? I suspect the number is zero. And that makes no sense to normal people. It makes perfect sense to the accident group. Remember, if the accident group had a kid that was shacked up for a couple of hours with Rocky and Ayub, they wouldn't care. They would have no questions at all. They'd be fine with their kid ending up dead at the bottom of a ravine. Yeah, they would, because they wouldn't ask any questions about it. They think this is all normal. And that's the truth of it. I'll say it again. The accident group parents, they believe that Debbie Duncan's done everything right. So presumably, to me, that means accident group parents would do nothing. They wouldn't call Ayub in this situation. They wouldn't call Rocky. They would just put their hands in the air and say, well, it was all an accident. Got no questions for anyone. The facts say accident, and I'm happy with that, is what the accident group parents say. I think they're despicable, every one of them. Let's hear what the accident group parents say. If there's any one of them, any accident group parent out there, if you think you would have done something different from what Debbie's done, just tell me. Just say I would have been calling Ayub and Rocky to find out exactly what happened. But if I don't hear from you, if there's no comment from you, you don't say anything on Luggy's channel or wherever, I'll assume that you're on board with what I just said. You accident group parents, you would do exactly what Debbie did. Saint Debbie, she sees things as you see things. No reason to contact any of these people that were with Jay in the last 24 hours because it was all an accident. There are no questions, right? That's your approach, accident group parents. Well, parenting, UK 2026. Much to be desired, I would say. Let's leave it there. Sunday. I think we're on for Jan's Views Live tonight. I think so. See you there. Hasta luego. Adios.